I kind of like to tell people because people know what yoga is, and most people know what Tai Chi is. So Qi Gong is kind of like the Tai Chi Chinese version of yoga. I know people whose cancers went into spontaneous remission after practicing 6 months, 8 hours every day. You know, with real faith.
Hello. First, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to talk to me today, Ethan. It's been a while. How have you been? What have you been up to?
I'm a New York State licensed acupuncturist, and I'm also a certified medical Qigong practitioner.
Okay. So, I'd like you to tell me about your origin story, like what got you into Qigong or acupuncture or whichever you'd like to focus on.
So I always like to joke and tell people that I saw a Jet Li movie, and in the movie, he invented Tai Chi. He was the legendary inventor of Tai Chi. And so when I was young and impressionable, I decided I wanted to study Tai Chi. Not having very much experience or intelligence, I went out in the world and I sought out martial arts teachings. And in 1999, I met my main martial arts teacher who taught me Qigong as part of the martial arts training stuff. And then I came to New York City and I found out that you could become an acupuncturist,
Mm,
but it took me 10 years to actually get it together to decide that I could be responsible enough to take out student loans,
yeah.
which I'm sure you relate to.
Yes, yes, it's hard with these student
Yeah.
loans. They're like huge, but yeah, very relatable.
So, so while I was in acupuncture school, while we were in acupuncture school, because you were right there with me,
Yes.
yeah, I I met Professor Linda Chu,
Mm,
Doctor Professor Doctor Linda Chu, and I took her Introduction to Medical Qigong course, which I loved so much. I'd been practicing Qigong for about 10 years at that point. As I grew up as a person, martial arts became less important to me because I learned that there weren't that many ninja clans, and drinking tea at a tea house. Assassins don't come to try to assassinate you that often.
my gosh. Okay.
So I started focusing on qigong for health,
Okay.
and I liked Linda Chu's Intro to Medical Qigong so much I took it 4 times.
Wow.
Yeah,
So you've mastered it basically.
I have not mastered it, but I know a heck of a lot.
Okay.
And upon graduation, I did her medical qigong training program, which was a year-long program with clinical hours at the New York College of Traditional Chinese Medicine.
Okay.
Uh, with, with that, the school is in Mineola, but they have a branch in Manhattan.
I see. I see. So, do you like to who do you think would benefit the most from Qigong practice?
I like to say everyone. Um, I feel that so for people who don't know, qigong. I kind of like to tell people because people know what yoga is,
Yeah.
and most people know what Tai Chi is. So qigong is kind of like the Tai Chi Chinese version of yoga.
Mm,
Sometimes I call it Chinese standing yoga
I see.
because you stand in place and you move from posture to posture and you sync your breathing. So they're breathing exercises with physical movements that affect the physical body and affect the health. So what I do as a medical qigong practitioner is I treat people with qigong both by teaching them exercises, therapy, kind of just like physical therapy, but this is not just like physical therapy because they have a scope of practice, which they definitely don't step out of ever. But I will give specific exercises for people's specific conditions.
I see.
Just
Interesting.
like as an acupuncturist, everyone who comes to us has an individual condition and issue,
Yes.
and we do differential diagnosis. and we tailor the treatment to the person's individual need. In medical Qigong, it's the same.
So, like, what are some common misconceptions about Qigong?
It's not psychic powers. You're not going to learn how to fly or become invisible or become bulletproof. You're not going to get superpowers. This is what we all want. We all want magic. I say that the my magic power is when I get up in the morning and I do my exercises, I don't feel terrible.
That's great. That's good. That's good.
Which, as more and more of us enter middle age, it's going to become more relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what would you say is the hardest part about your job, like doing like helping people with qigong or acupuncture? What would you say is the most difficult part about that?
I was going to say not cracking jokes so people think I'm a maniac while I'm putting needles in them. Um, but, sometimes we get cases that are very sad.
Yeah.
And I had a case not too long ago. The gentleman had a phantom pain. He'd been to several different medical doctors. No one knew what was going on. Um, you know, Based on channel palpation and that sort of thing, I sort of diagnosed the channel disorder,
Hmm.
but it turns out that he had a very serious form of cancer.
Oh,
And so the pain, he had a deep seated burning pain that was only relieved with acupuncture treatment. He didn't come for medical Qigong treatment. I did not offer that at that clinic. But hours after treatment, it would come back. But the only relief he got was actually in the clinic.
wow.
Uh, but we have these cases. People come to us. We're the medicine of last resort. People come to us because no one else can help them. Period.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like I said earlier, I'm not a master. I'm very much a journeyman. You know,
Yeah.
I'm an expert compared to anybody who doesn't have a license. And
Yeah.
I know a woman. She practiced the qigong 6 hours every day, and her
Wow.
Parkinson's went away. Went away,
Amazing.
and the doctors told her, "Oh, well, then you just didn't have Parkinson's."
What? Wow.
She had to retire from being a teacher because her hands shook so much. They had been shaking for years, and finally she admitted it to herself. And her coworkers were like, "Yeah, it's been like this for years."
Wow.
And now she has no tremors whatsoever
Amazing. From qigong, just qigong practice.
from practicing qigong. But the difficult part of that is convincing and telling people you can be healed, but it's going to take. I mean, by the time things are that bad, it requires an equal commitment.
Yeah.
So 6 to 8 hours a day, I am not allowed to say that can cure cancer.
No, you're not allowed to say that.
Not
No.
allowed to say that. I know people whose cancers went into spontaneous remission after practicing 6 months, 8 hours every day. You know, with real faith, real
Yeah.
real practice. And then this becomes difficult because then we have people in our lives who either they just don't think it's for them and they suffer and pass away.
Who are the people that you wish would take advantage of qigong? Like
Honestly,
it,
everyone.
but is there a person in particular, and that you don't have to name them, but like a type of person that you think would really benefit?
I, you know, I think about both of my parents are in their 80s. I could say that they're blessed with relatively good health, but they've got their aches and pains.
Yeah.
And I've encouraged them to go to classes, and I've encouraged them to take advantage of online classes. I've considered myself starting online classes for people to join in, which as things develop, I may offer that. Um, so I hesitate to say old people,
Yeah.
but as we age, our balance and our joints, in Chinese medicine, we always say that the hinge that moves doesn't get rusty, doesn't get stuck.
Yeah.
So for our joints, that's a very obvious, well-known side effect or benefit of practicing Tai Chi and Qigong. Balance as we age. It's caught me a couple times. I've tripped and fallen a few times here in the city. That's never any fun.
Yeah.
Um, so I hesitate to say old people because young people, if you start practicing Qigong now, when you'll get to become an old person, and when you are, you'll enjoy life a heck of a lot more.
Mm, I see. Yes, that
Um,
makes sense. So what keeps you motivated to do it?
um, Not wanting to feel terrible when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my personal practice. Motivated, again with the jokes. I do acupuncture for money,
Oh.
but
Okay.
why don't I trade stocks? Why don't I, do online marketing? Well, when you're helping people in the clinic and you're seeing people feel better and people are getting results from your treatments and they give you that feedback, it's not even they give you that feedback. It's just you see them feel better.
Yeah.
They get up off the table, they're moving more freely, or they come back to you next week, and their digestion, which was giving them so much trouble, has resolved. Seeing the improvement in the quality of life for our patients, uh, that's what really keeps you motivated.
Do you have any particular story that captures like this like phenomenon that you're describing? Any particular stories or story?
Um, I mean, yeah, we've all got lots of those stories.
What would you have one that in particular
You
that sticks
know,
out to you?
one in particular. No, my brain is supplying me with all the times that somebody came back and was like, it didn't. I had a woman in clinic who was in so much pain, she was on like a 30-second delay. When you'd speak to her, you could tell in Chinese medicine, we say the shen was behind the eyes. You could tell she was sharp, she was alert, she was with you, but to answer you took her, she was on a time delay.
Hmm.
And it was important to her that you heard what she had to say. So, you had to wait for her to respond.
Yeah.
Um, she was in so much pain. And, I treat her, and then she'd come back next week and say, it didn't work.
Hmm.
And I go, oh, I'm so sorry. And she'd say, well, I felt better for 3 or 4 days, but then the pain came back. And I was like,
It did work.
well, why don't you just come in every 3 or 4 days then? We understand the flaws in our medical system, but
Yeah.
she can't necessarily make it in every 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
But in other models of other societies that have acupuncture, you'd come in every day
Yeah.
until you were better.
Yeah.
So that's I don't want to call it a criticism of the system that we have, the once a week treatment thing. But when I worked at a no fault clinic where I was seeing about 45 people a day, people did come in every day because they were covered to come in every day for
Yeah.
their cases. And I can't say as all of them responded that well, but a lot of them did.
Mm.
And I do feel like it's because they were coming in every day getting treatments, and not just acupuncture, but also other modalities that I felt they were making improvements.
So what do you wish that people knew about what you do, your profession? What do you wish people knew about acupuncture? What do you wish people knew about qigong?
So I consider acupuncture and qigong to be two facets of traditional Chinese medicine, along with traditional Chinese herbology, which I am not trained in, but you and I know many great
Yeah.
herbalists. And then, we call it the Yang Sheng tradition, the nourishing life tradition, which involves acupuncture, Tai Chi, Qi Gong, moxibustion, herbalism, diet.
Yeah.
Diet is huge. Um, when you're doing everything together holistically to support life, healing and positive change is possible.
Yeah.
So that's what I wish people knew. I wish they knew that they could make a positive change. Sadly, sometimes it's, I want to say, too much too soon. Like the lifestyle changes are too global for people to integrate.
Yeah.
Um, but when you're faced with dire situations, you have to take drastic action.
Yeah.
And these things, they do synergistically play off of each other and help.
Yeah.
So I wish we had a model in this country where people could come in and get acupuncture in a clinic every day.
Yeah.
Then I think they would really start seeing the benefit, because 2 or 3 days the body starts getting out of tune again. Sometimes I tell patients that it's like I'm a big fan of the channel Meridian therapy system,
Mm.
and I kind of explain it like the channels that are running through the body are like guitar strings, and they're so out of tune. What I'm doing with the needles and the points is I'm tuning their strings again,
That's a
so that
really interesting way to put it.
then they can play in harmony.
That's great. I love that.
I mean, it's a metaphor that people can relate to,
Yes, exactly. It's a great metaphor.
because we've all heard that guy on the corner strumming, that hippie strumming his guitar, and it's just totally out of whack.
Yeah, yeah. No, I know what you're talking about. I know exactly what you're talking about. But yeah, so that's you've had some really interesting things to say, really interesting insight. And once again, I'd like to thank you for joining me for this call and giving you were very informative about Qigong. And I'm sure that there's a lot like I even learned some things. So and I like
Well,
your metaphor, so it was great.